Welcome to the Introverted Influencer Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Van Slyke. My soul's mission on this planet is to help fellow introverts grow their online influence in a state of feminine flow and ease. While battling the woes of depression, anxiety, and even mom guilt, I've somehow managed to build a six-figure blog without the use of social media and without sacrificing my mental health. If I can do it, you can fucking too. Hey. Welcome back to episode 33 of the Introverted Influencer Podcast. Today is a very exciting day for the show because we are having the second guest on ever in the history of the Introverted Influencer. And she is a damn special lady from the UK, baby. She is the host of Vibrant Mind, Vibrant Life podcast. She is also a life coach and a certified NLP and hypnotherapist practitioner. And she is now authoring her first book, which is going to drop in February. So in today's episode, she is sharing the many benefits of NLP and timeline therapy, which is very interesting because I had never even heard of timeline therapy before. She gives her scientific approach to manifesting the life of your dreams. And she also gives some really practical ways to work through self-limiting beliefs and behaviors, as well as just some really great advice for women who are just looking to get started on the journey of finding their purpose and potentially making a career of it. So, without further ado, I give you episode 33 of the Introverted Influencer Podcast with special guest Sian Hill. I hope you enjoy. Hey, Sian. I'm so happy to have you on as my second guest on the Introverted Influencer Podcast. And I just want to go ahead and jump into it. Explain to everybody what you do.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's really, really good to be here. So what do I do? Well, my official title is that I'm a trainer of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and I'm a master coach. But I work specifically with women in business, usually those that are kind of starting out or feel like they've hit a ceiling and they've got big goals, big things that they want to achieve. But the thing that's stopping them from getting there is their thinking, their thoughts, their emotions, the kind of the mental and emotional obstacles that keep them stuck. So my job as a coach is to help them identify what those blocks are and then release them so that they can move forward in alignment with their goals and feel consistently motivated, have positive self-talk, and know that they will achieve them. It's just a matter of time. So whilst I do work with a whole host of people, that's where my passion lies, having been and still being a woman in business. I know what a roller coaster that can be.
Oh, yeah, it is. I'm going through it right now. I'm definitely going through a crazy time right now. So it sounds like I could use you today.
Yeah.
Tell me about your spiritual journey or your self-development path that led you to be into the NLP and hypnotherapy and life coaching.
Okay, so when I started out, I had no desire to be a coach or a trainer at all. It would have been about 11 years ago, I think, maybe a bit more. I wanted to be an actress. And I was going to the odd audition. I wasn't getting a lot of work. And I was going in with my head held down, thinking they're never going to choose me. Why would they ever pick me when they can have her? And life just wasn't good. I was in a bad place. So the one day I was given a book by my mum. It was The Secret. And started reading this book where it said that I can create my own reality, which I was so excited about. So I probably spent the next 12 months after that meditating, visualizing a car falling on my driveway, checks coming in the mail. And after a while of nothing really changing, in fact, I think I felt more frustrated than ever because I felt like I'd failed at even being able to create my own reality. I started doing a bit more digging, and I was reading books, and I kept stumbling across this word NLP. And it said that it was like the user manual for your mind. I was like, that's what I need, because I felt like everybody had this secret book that I didn't know about. So started learning about NLP and timeline therapy. Went on to do my practitioner training originally, and it changed my entire life. So things started shifting bit by bit. I remember going into these auditions with just a totally different frame of mind. It was, I went there and I enjoyed them. And then I got the parts, and bit by bit, life started improving. So I continued on to my master practitioner course and my trainer's training course, because I was just like a sponge absorbing all this information. And it was by that point that I thought, gosh, I love this more than I love the acting work. The passion had kind of flipped.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It was never the plan. There was a day that I received a script for a job, and there were loads and loads of words, and I thought to myself, oh, I can't be bothered to learn lines. I thought, hang on a second, isn't this like every actress's dream to have words on a script? And I thought the passion isn't there anymore. So I checked in with myself and thought, right, just because that was the goal doesn't mean that it always has to be the goal. I changed, things had changed. And so I decided, you know what, this is actually where my passion lies now, is to help people who were stuck and in a position where I was, and bring them forward and show them that there is a way.
Yeah, I love that pivot. It's like the true purpose comes to us when we're not exactly looking for that. It's like we're distracted somewhere else with something else, and then that's when the real thing hits us, and then it's just this, it all comes together somehow. I love that. So I've been really into manifestation. It's been about 5 years. And the first few years, I think like the spiritual bypass stuff, like The Secret, what I got into was a lot of Abraham Hicks stuff. And I think it helped for me just knowing it's okay to feel good, because I dealt with depression, anxiety ever since I was younger. And so I think, I don't know, a lot of synchronicities came into my life at the time when I first started I guess raising my vibration, but it always did seem like there was a missing piece. So with your manifestation, like law of attraction journey, I want to know like how you used NLP. What else did you use to kind of hone the law of attraction to make it work for you?
Yeah, great question. So, gosh, when I first started hearing about the law of attraction, I don't know if you experienced this, but it starts seeing stuff everywhere. So the car that I decided I wanted, it was all over the place.
Yeah. And
I got really confused at the time, because I thought, right, is this a sign? Should I buy it? Should I what is the universe telling me? So I was a bit confused by it all. What NLP did for me was it gave me the science behind the attraction side of things. So I've actually written a book on it, which is coming out in February next year. I'm not sure if you've heard of this. There's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. So it's your RAS.
Okay.
Now, it's like the gatekeeper to your mind. So when you decide that something's important to you and you focus on it, the gatekeeper, so your reticular activating system, is on high alert. So anytime it notices that thing outside of you, it activates your brain to let you know it's there. So this is why when you decide, right, this is the thing I want, suddenly you see it everywhere. It was always there, but now your brain looks for it. So what NLP allows you to do is to reprogram your thoughts, because as people, we have our thoughts, which happen on autopilot, and they're linked to the way that we feel, and then ultimately the behavior that we carry out, which gets us the results in life. So NLP is starting with the thoughts. So you change your way of thinking, which then changes the things that you notice, because the things that are important to you change. You start thinking differently. So your reticular activating system is on high alert for all those forward focused, good thinking things that you want in your life, and you feel differently. So your vibration is raised. And then you behave differently. So you show up differently in the world, where, for example, using the auditions that I used to go to, I used to go in with my shoulders slouched, my head down, which impacted on the way that I felt and the thoughts that I had. So it's like this never-ending loop of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all linked. And when one changes, the other changes as well. So NLP is working with the brain and the emotions to change those so that you automatically show up differently. And that taps into your unconscious mind and your reticular activating system. So suddenly all of these opportunities that were always there that you just weren't noticing, it's like they become visible and you can see them.
That's so cool. So I've never really heard it from that more of the brain, what's going on with the brain there. I've heard it like in the mitochondria, that they start to look out for what's going on. And then also like the quantum thing, which I've listened to some of your podcasts, and I love how you gave an example of the I always get this, I'm going to butcher it, Schrodinger's cat, the experiment with that. So that's so cool. I might want to loop back to like the quantum thing if you want to go there, because to me, that's always been like the scientific proof that I needed, that this stuff really worked and I wasn't just like going crazy. But for me, what I've noticed, angel numbers, especially, I don't know if you know anything about angel numbers, but like every time I look, it's like 222, 111, 333. But those were things that I never saw before I got into the manifestation thing. So what I noticed, I don't know if you're familiar with Lacey Phillips' work, To Be Magnetic. She's out of California.
Yes.
Okay. So what really started to actually pull all of this like more woo-woo positive thinking into like actual science for me was her work, because she explains the importance of like the hypnotherapy and rewiring your brain. And so the past few years, I've actually added her like hypnotherapy exercises into my manifestation practice. So I want to know where the hypnotherapy, and I also want to ask you about like timeline therapy, because I've never heard of this, but this sounds really cool. So you mind?
Yes. Yeah. So timeline therapy, oh my God, it's a game changer. It really, really is. So NLP deals with, as I've mentioned, the mind. So it's the thinking mind, the thoughts that we have, and helps us to think differently through reprogramming our brain. Timeline therapy is, there's a number of techniques. What it essentially does is allows you to take a lifetime of past emotions and release them. So if you think about it, right, when you come into the world, think about it like this. You have a cup, let's call it your emotional cup. And when you come to the world, your cup is empty. And over time, experiences happen and we feel emotions. We don't necessarily have labels for them when we're young, but when somebody goes peekaboo to you and it scares you as a baby, it's and then as you get older, you realize, okay, that's fear. So you have this timeline of fear. So when you feel it, you know, oh, I feel scared right now. Then over time, this emotional cup fills up and up and up and up until it's full. So I'll show you. So you've got your cup here and it gets to the point that it's full. So this is what happens then is day-to-day events occur where they're not major events yet, because our emotional cup is full. it almost goes into overflow. It's like, I can't take any more emotions. So it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like the last straw. This is the last thing that could happen. And it may only be, somebody turning up late or getting cut up in traffic, and you think it's the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And it's because you're just emotionally in overflow. So timeline therapy is a really fast, really quick and really kind process, because you don't have to relive the past and go through all the trauma that a lot of people have already been through. You use this process to essentially empty out your cup. So you release a whole lifetime of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, all those major negative emotions that people carry around with them their whole lives. And the thing with those emotions is that whilst they're from the past, when people remember the past, they can still feel them in the now. And those emotions drive the decisions that we make today and also our future decisions. So going back to, the woman in business setting up, a lot of the decisions that woman would make, yourself included, and I know I've been there as well, would be based on fear of, can I do this or not? Maybe guilt for those of you that have children. There can also be limiting beliefs, which timeline therapy is really powerful for, to release a limiting belief. So things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I can never make money, whatever the beliefs that hold people back are, unless you deal with those in your unconscious mind, they're always going to be there. They're always going to make it feel like hard work and play out somewhere. Because even in the context of business, if that's what somebody's working in, we're people and we take ourselves with us wherever we go. So if somebody holds a belief like, I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy, that's not just going to play out in the business. That could play out in their relationships, in their health and fitness, their, whatever area of life it might be. So timeline therapy allows you to release all of that past negative emotion, all of those limiting beliefs, all of the things that keep people stuck, so that when you're in the now, setting your goals for the future, you're doing it almost without the baggage of the past. Mm-hmm. It's like you've wiped the slate clean so that you can then move forward. Again, going back to the word that I mentioned earlier, in alignment. So you're congruent, that when you say, right, that I want to earn this much money, or I want to attract this partner, or whatever it might be, the voice in your head is saying, yeah, you can. And the feeling in your heart is of excitement and belief in yourself. And you show up like that person. You are that person. You become the person that can achieve those things. So honestly, it is life-changing.
Okay, well, I'm going to be selfish here. So I'm kind of in the midst of that myself, like stepping through my fears. And I have done, I feel like, a lot of unblocking, like I said, with hypnotherapy, lots of meditation, Kundalini yoga work. So kind of trying to get trauma out of my body with the breath work and that kind of thing. So it's like I'm in that in between where I've taken the leap of faith and I'm stepping out, doing a podcast. I'm about to be speaking at my first event. And the last time I spoke in public, I had a panic attack. It was college. So it's like, I feel like a lot of it's been cleared, but I still don't have that proof that it's all going to turn out. I'm like in the unknown right now. And it's almost more uncomfortable than knowing, okay, I'm going to step on stage in a few weeks and just completely like make an ass of myself. If I were your client, like how would you work me through? Because I am freaked out, but I'm using like what modalities I have, and I'm proud of myself because I'm handling it way better than I used to in the past with like prescription anxiety pills and wine and binge eating, all that. Like I'm not doing that, but I need maybe some extra tools. How would you guide me through it?
Yeah, cool. So firstly, congratulations and well done you for putting yourself out there and getting uncomfortable. It's that uncertainty and the unknown is one of the biggest holdups for people. It's, you've got your comfort zone, and so many people live their lives uncomfortably in the comfort zone, which is such a shame because, I think it's more uncomfortable to live a life of regret, but that's
Amen.
just my opinion. So if we were working together one-to-one, I'd be able to take you through the full process of timeline therapy and release the emotions from the past that are driving the thoughts of today. Particularly when it comes to public speaking and things, fear is often a big driver. So fear comes from the past. Anxiety is focusing on the future, but focusing on it turning out badly. Because if you think about it, if you were imagining your talk on the stage in, when did you say it was, a month?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's in a month.
So
Tomorrow.
if you were imagining you on the stage and everything was turning out brilliantly and you really felt that that was going to happen, then what would there to be anxious about? There'd be nothing to be anxious about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we can do is, if you're up for it, use this is a really quick process to help you with that. So to give you almost hindsight, because after the event, when you look back and you think, was that it? Like, that was so much easier than I thought. Yeah, that's after the event. So what we can do is help you to tap into that feeling now, if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so first we just need to work out where your timeline is. So it's just how you store time. It's how you know the difference from the past and the future. And it's your unconscious mind that I'm interested in. So if I was to ask your unconscious mind to which direction your past is, I have an idea that you might point from left to right or up to down or front to back or in some direction in relation to your body. So if I were to ask you which direction is your past, to which direction would you point?
Backwards.
Backwards. Okay, cool. And if I were to ask your unconscious mind which way is your future, which direction would you point?
Forwards.
Okay, cool. Brilliant. And that is as simple as that.
Now all my quantum interests, I know it's all existing at once, right? Like just parallel realities, just at the picking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, all your timeline is a way of your unconscious mind storing time. So what's the past, what's the present, and what's the future. And you're right, they're all happening at the same time. Yeah, it's good for you to know that. So when you book a holiday, you turn up in the right place at the right time. So we're going to be using your timeline just for you to imagine where you are in space and time in relation to the event that you've got coming up.
Okay.
So what I want you to do, and you can close your eyes for it if you want to, is imagine yourself floating up above your timeline and over into the future to 15 minutes after the successful completion of the event that you used to feel anxious about. So just do that now, float out 15 minutes afterwards and just tap into all those feelings. That feeling where you think, that went well, because remember, it was successful. It went exactly how you want it. And as you do that, just notice all of the events between then and now, just rearranging themselves in light of your new choices. And notice that feeling. And now, where's the anxiety? Where's it gone?
I'm excited now, and I'm not anxious. And I can already feel like a weight off of my shoulder and like a sense of accomplishment. Like, oh my God, it feels so good that I did the thing. Because I see, I totally agree with what you said earlier about we think we're comfortable in our comfort zone, but really it starts to weigh us down, and we're not even aware until we step out of it. And then it's like, I don't know. Life has been haywire for me the past few months. And I almost feel like maybe I'm being tested by the universe. Like, you want to up it a level, you want to function at this level. Can you learn all these lessons, and can you embody it at a new level as well? So there's been stress, but through all that stress, I have felt exhilarated again. Whereas like a year ago, there was this waves of depression, even though I feel like I live a lot of my purpose with like my interior design blog. There's been a calling for years that I want to help women. And especially with all my mental health issues, I'm so passionate about that. but it was like the fear of how do I step through that? And I'm not a good speaker. It makes me so uncomfortable. And just starting the podcast has been it's exhilarating. It's yes, maybe I'm nervous at times and maybe I'm stressed, but it feels better than that weight of like not being the person I know I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Change tends to happen at the extremes when people are knocking around in the comfort zone and in the, I suppose what you could call the mundane of life, in that it's neither good, it's neither bad, it's okay. Not a lot tends to happen. It's more so when things either get really bad. So you mentioned about feeling depressed, suffering with depression, and so either it's gotten really bad, or when life gets really good, that's when people tend to make changes, because it's either right, I'm not doing this anymore, something's got to give, and a switch flips, or life gets really great and people say, do you know what, I need more of this in my life. Whereas if you're just knocking around in life's okay land, not a great deal happens. The shame of it is that a lot of the time people keep themselves in that land because it feels safe. And, you mentioned a few beliefs that you've been holding on to yourself, like, oh, I can't do this and stuff like that. That is the box that people keep themselves in. So it's not that I'm not doing it, it's that I can't do it. So it's safe and I'll stay here. As much as I don't like it, it's known and nothing can hurt me in here. Yeah. That's not living a life of purpose and passion.
No. I think the listeners would be really interested. I know a little bit about NLP, but maybe it would help if they could hear like some simple tweaks they could make to their own internal dialogue so they can understand kind of what NLP is really all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think, there's so much to it. I'm thinking what would be most useful and easy to apply. Right, so I mentioned earlier that the thoughts you have and the way that you feel and the way that you physically hold yourself are all linked. So when one changes, all of the others change. To just show you how it works, if you can do this with me now and the listeners at home. So if you slouch your shoulders, drop your head, look down, look to the floor, and as you do that, think about like the worst day ever that you had. And whilst you're doing that, notice what picture comes to mind and just try to think a happy thought. Okay, that's enough of that.
I can't fake.
Whereas if you put your shoulders back and chin up, look up to the sky with your eyes and smile as you do it and say to yourself, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do that. And while you do that, just try and think about that same day and just try and do it and notice how you can't.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's changing your physiology. So changing how you hold yourself, which changes what's going on internally. So now let's go to what's going on internally in your mind. So the thoughts that you have, your unconscious mind can't process negatives. So if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, you have to think of a pink elephant to not think of a pink elephant. Now, what people will often do, particularly when they're setting goals, is tell themselves all the things that they're not going to do or they're going to stop doing. So, right, I'm not going to eat chocolate anymore. I won't drink any wine. I'm going to stop texting that person or whatever it is, but it's all about what they're not going to do.
Yeah, now, like the binge eating for me, I suffered with that. And it was always when I had like really oppressive like trainers or coaches telling me, you cannot have this, you cannot have, as soon as they would tell me that, I would want it more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you are quite literally telling your brain to think about it.
Yeah.
So it may never have even been a thought before. Your unconscious mind is a bit like, it's like a 5-year-old child. Between the age of 0 and 7, we are just little unconscious minds and we're absorbing all the world around us, all those emotions, those beliefs. It's only when we get to about the age of 7 that our conscious mind develops and we can critically analyze things and say, no, that, and filter things through our conscious awareness. But our unconscious mind stays like that 5-year-old child. So when somebody's saying, don't do something, think about how a kid would be like, don't run. And you think, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. No, you're not having
I've got
sweeties.
2 boys. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the most simplest switches that you can make is to tell yourself, say it the way that you want it. So if you find yourself, right, I'm not going to do this. Okay, what is it that I'm going to do? Because that will create the image in your head. And that image in your head is going to affect how you feel and then how you behave. So start saying things towards what you do want rather than away from what you don't want. So the language that you use to yourself is really, really vital. And it takes a bit of practice because we're so programmed to just, talk about what we don't want in life, what we're not going to do. So the minute you hear anything where it's not, don't, can't, won't, stop yourself and think, right, what's the opposite to that? So you can begin changing that image. Then another great tip, so the images that we store in our mind have a quality to them. So when we imagine something, that image may have sounds to it and feelings, but it will also have maybe color or black and white. It may be big, it may be small, it may be far away in our mind, it may be up close, it may be like a movie or like a still photo. And it may be that we are in the picture, so it's like we're living it in real life, or it can be that we see ourselves in the picture. So it's almost like we're watching ourselves when we think about, when we imagine whatever it is we're thinking about. Now, when there's a lot of emotion present and people are imagining those things that create a lot of specifically negative emotion, what you often find is that it's like you're living it. So it's like you're in the movie of your mind. So you're playing through like it's 3D, it's all happening around you. If that's the case, a really simple way to take away the emotion is to imagine stepping out of the picture. So you can see yourself in the picture and then just zoom it out. Imagine throwing the picture over the other side of the room and make it really small and dark and black and white, drain all the color out of it and just notice the emotion goes with it. Have you got anything at the moment to put it into practice? Because that's the easiest way to do it. So have you got anything that when you think about it right now, causes maybe something just minor that causes maybe a bit of irritation or...
Yeah, you're okay. So I'm going to bring this up because I know a lot of my fellow bloggers too are frustrated right now. There's been some algorithm changes in like Pinterest, social media, and Google just did a rollout. And so a lot of us bloggers are like, what in the world? Like we feel like we've been kicked when we're already down because there's just been so many disruptions this year in the world of blogging. So I think that might be one that a lot of listeners can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example because you can find yourself feeling emotion around it, whether it's, anger, irritation, frustration, whatever it might be.
And then like gloom and doom, like catastrophe. Because I see, on a lot of these private blogging boards, oh, well, blogging's going to be dead now. It's just like Armageddon and blogging.
Yeah.
Catastrophizing. Yeah.
And the thing with that is, well, firstly, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's completely out of your control. So feeling emotion around it doesn't help you. It just almost adds to the stress and everything that goes with it. And the knock-on effect, the after effect of that is that you can create new beliefs around it. Not such great beliefs. And when we have a belief, we look to prove ourselves right. So our brain wants to show us that, yes, you've got this correct. So if somebody then creates a belief like, oh, this is it, my business is over. It's like they'll find all of the ways.
Yes.
And it can create a self-sabotage loop. And before you know it, but the thing with that is people will be, aha, see, I told you it would happen, because we like to prove ourselves right. So it's better to kind of get it early on and whether you like the algorithm or not, it's like, right, if you can feel okay about it, then that makes you more resourceful. So you can say, right, what can I do instead? How can I get around this? What are my options? So when you think about, what's the word that you would use about the algorithm? Is it frustrated, irritated, annoyed?
Yes, frustrated. And kind of defeated. Like it feels like it's I don't know. I'll just say frustrated and defeated.
Okay, so when you think about how frustrated and defeated you are about the change in algorithm, do you have a picture come to mind? Could you just bring a picture to mind for me?
Okay.
Okay, and when you think about that picture, are you in the picture? So is it like you're looking through your own eyes?
I'm looking through my own eyes at the analytics, the
nice.
declining analytics.
Fantastic, cool. So what I want you to do then is just imagine yourself stepping out of the picture. Okay, and then take that picture and I want you to zoom it out to the other side of the room and make it really small and dark, shrink it down so it's like the size of a postage stamp, drain all of the colour and then just seal it in there. Okay, and come back to now.
Okay.
Okay, and now tell me, how does it feel different when you think about the algorithm?
Well, it kind of took away its power. It made it smaller and it made it feel kind of like it's out of my body, like out of my field somehow. Like I just kind of removed it out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's as simple as that. You know, the pictures that we make in our mind, none of them are real, yet they feel real. And so therefore it is real in our world in that moment. So when we're able to change either how we feel through timeline therapy or change the pictures and the thoughts using NLP, it changes everything else, and that changes everything.
Yeah. And well, and one of your episodes, you mentioned how important it is when you do get into a negative loop, when you're frustrated on your path, whatever that may be, and you say, I haven't made money, or the algorithm hasn't turned around, or my business hasn't turned around. And you said just adding that simple yet. It just is so small, but I don't know, it just feels so different just to add that little word to the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what we spoke about earlier with language being really, really powerful, by adding the word yet to the end of whatever the problem is or the solution is that you're yet to come by, that changes the picture that you have in your mind. So that it's called your internal representation. It's how you internally represent the outside world. So that internal representation, which is made up of pictures and sounds and feelings, that word yet creates a different picture because it's just then a matter of time. So it will happen. It's just when is yet to be decided. So that does change. You're right. It's absolutely so tiny and so simple. Yeah, it reprograms your whole brain into thinking differently.
Yeah. And thank God for this. A lot of the work I've been doing, I haven't been doing NLP, but a lot of the manifestation and spiritual techniques, it's made me realize. And when you did that, the picture exercise with me, it's what I realize is a lot of us make our problems our God. Like we make the problem, the algorithm change, or our finances, our debt, like so much bigger. And so I love just the idea of kind of collapsing it into a picture and taking it out of you. That's really neat.
Yeah.
That's one of
the biggest, if I was to give one tip to anybody to really start turning their way of thinking around, it would be to adopt one of the universal laws. So the law of cause and effect. Now, in NLP, the way that this is used, it's kind of a frame to live your life by, is to think of it as two sides of the equation. So when you live life at the cause side of the equation, you cause all of the effects in your life. When you live life at the effect side of the equation, You just are affected by whatever. You have a life of excuses and reasons as to why things aren't working out. It's like,
like victim mentality, like everything is happening to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you choose to take full responsibility for your life, the good and the bad, and say, right, whatever happens, it's the effect, it's caused by the thoughts, the feelings, the actions that I took. They all preceded whatever effect happened. Now, this isn't very popular because it means taking full responsibility for everything. I used to be like, right, I'm happy to take responsibility for the good stuff. Yeah, that was me. This bad stuff over here, not so much. That's not my fault. It isn't about blame. It's about saying, right, if I have reasons and excuses as to why things aren't working, I'm putting responsibility outside of me, and therefore I can't do anything about it. So I'm not empowered and I don't get results. So by accepting everything that happens, even down to, years ago, before learning this stuff, I was in a bad relationship. And I remember thinking back then, well, this, it's not my fault. He's horrible. He's, it was physically, emotionally violent, and it just not a good situation. Yet when I learned this stuff, I had to take full ownership and think, right, I have chosen to be here. It is a choice. It may be through lack of feeling resourceful, yet either way, it's been a choice. The good thing about that was I also have the choice about whether I stay here or not. Whereas if I was just there and there was nothing I could do about it, then there's nothing I can do to change it either. So it's taking extreme responsibility for your life. The more responsibility you can take, the more results you can get, the more you can do to change it. So a simple switch in language again is whenever you hear yourself saying the word can't, change it to won't. So even down to like, are you going to come to the gym today, Sian? Oh no, I can't make it. It's like, well, actually, I'm choosing to organize my diary in the way that I am and spend my time how I am. So it's not that I can't make it, just by saying, do you know what? I won't be there today. Then it's a choice and you're empowered. And you can then get off that hamster wheel of beating yourself up. Like, I can't go, oh, I should have gone. Maybe I should have done this. It's like, actually, no, I'm choosing not to go.
Yeah, because the beating yourself up, it just drains you. And I think that when I look back, a lot of maybe the ruts in my life and when I got really depressed, I think it was just that constant beating myself up.
Yeah.
And just, oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be working harder. And it's like, okay, well, what good is that? What good are the shoulds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a great question to ask yourself is like, should according to who? And what would happen if you did? Or what would happen if you didn't? It's easy to put what you could call social expectations, or what we perceive to be social expectations on ourselves, that this is the monetary goal that we should hit, and we should be driving this car and look this way or have this kind of lifestyle. And in my world, there's just absolutely no way that everybody in this world has the same goals. Not everybody can want to hit the same financial figure or live the same way, yet we use the word should like a throwaway comment, as though we've all got the same things that we want to achieve in life. So it's kind of like just thinking, right, so what if I didn't? And who says I should? And then turning it into, actually, I won't be doing that. This is what I will be doing instead.
I like that a lot. I think actually, I know you speak about self-sabotage too, and that is something that as soon as I think that I've worked through it, I see examples of where it presents again. And I've done some shadow work. A shadow word for me was lazy. But then I integrated it and I'm like, no, I want ease. And I embraced it, and I watched basically an entire career grow from passive, like 80-90% passive income. And I had gotten in this flow as soon as I accepted, like, instead of looking around, oh, I should be working harder, maybe I should be on Instagram more, or this or that, I just kind of owned it. I'm like, no, this is not what I'm doing. This is not aligned. And I saw how that worked for me. Then fast forward about a year or so, and I start looking around like, oh my gosh, maybe my success came too easy. I had gotten to this point where I was able to only work like 7 hours a week on my blog because it was just generating so much passive income that I think I started to self-sabotage, because I started looking around at all of the people who are working harder than me, or even like as an empath, like just feeling kind of the misery that a lot of people are in. And I felt guilty. And I can see where maybe some of like being hit with this algorithm changes over the past few months. I mean, I guess I'm not that powerful, but with what I know about the quantum reality, I like to take ownership of what's happening. I'm like, perhaps that is some self-sabotage stuff coming up. Like, why I'm having to work through some of these issues again is because I started to feel guilty for easy, a life of ease. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is that they're broken and then they do the inner work and they're fixed. And then life is all, and that's it. There's nothing else to learn. Where it's more like a never-ending journey of things get better, and then because you're stronger and you're in a better place, you'll get given bigger challenges, but you can handle them more easily because you're more resourceful. And then as things start to get better again, you get given, but again, they don't feel like that big challenge because you're more resourceful. So if you were given the challenges that you have today, maybe 10 years ago, the chances are that you maybe wouldn't have been able to deal with them. Be like, what? Yeah, crash and burn, can't handle this at all. Yet through your growth and your evolution and the work that you've been doing on yourself and the business that you've grown, today's challenges aren't as big a deal. Yet when you're in them, they're still the problem. So you've still got it's still something you've got to break through. Now, you mentioned earlier about
and it's first world problems. So then you could, beat yourself up. Oh gosh, other people have it way more significant problems, but it's still a challenge. It's all relative, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Years ago, before I even learned any of this stuff, I always remembered my dad saying to me, I think I was having a boyfriend problem or something at the time. And I said to him, yeah, but compared to people in whatever country, they haven't got food. And he said, yeah, I get that, Sian. He said, and your problems are your problems. So that's what you've got to deal with. So I think it's for every, there's polarity in everything. So yes, they are my problems. And at the same time, it's about not becoming so attached to them that I become the problem and make it bigger than it is. And at the same time, accepting, yes, it is my problem. So it is a problem and I got to deal with it. So it's giving yourself that love and grace whilst not sinking into it and making it who you become at the same time. So you mentioned earlier about like the universe maybe testing you. And now that can sometimes be what happens. When you have a goal and you say, right, this is what I want to achieve, and I'm fully in alignment, you will have a test that comes along in many ways, shapes or form to see. It's like your unconscious mind is testing you to say, you've said that you want this. Are you committed? Is it really what you want? I remember it happening to me when I first set up a business. I think it was about 3 years ago, training people to become accredited coaches. I suddenly started getting loads of phone calls from acting agents, modeling agents. Oh, I've got this job for you. And I thought, right, if I go and do that, then that means that I won't be doing the work that I said I was going to do to create this business. And it was tempting because you think, well, that's comfortable. There's lots of money in that. I don't have to think about it a lot. Yet that's not going for the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, right, this is a test. And a great way to check in with, is it a test? Is it an opportunity? Because that's the other thing. It can be confusing at times, what am I being tested, or am I being presented with the very thing I've asked for? Is it in alignment with your purpose? Does it serve the bigger purpose at play? Does it help you to fulfill your mission in life? And if not, then it's probably a test.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be, just to go back to your own example, I appreciate the algorithm is worldwide, yet you only have your universe. So that's the only one that you're experiencing. And if you've committed to making a go of the podcast, doing things differently, getting out there, and then suddenly it's like, now I've got this algorithm challenge, it could very well be, okay, so you want to make yourself available to women to help them overcome obstacles. So here's one for you to work around, and how do you deal with it so that you can break through the very barriers and the obstacles that when you get to the other side, it's like, I'm out of this, and now I can continue with that mission that I set out to do. So
that's what I feel. But then there's days, where I freak out and I'm like, oh, but then I center myself, and that's what I want to latch onto, that belief for sure. So what would you like with being a life coach for so many women now? Have you noticed a common limiting belief or block that just keeps coming up?
Yeah, self-worth and feeling good enough is often the hierarchy belief. If that belief can play out in many, many ways. Yeah, if you look at, say for example, somebody saying, oh, I'll never find a partner, or I'll never make the money I want. Who wants to work with me? When you look at what are all of these little examples, all these beliefs examples of, they all come back to this overriding umbrella belief, for want of a better word, of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. And when you release that belief, all of the smaller beliefs that sit under it, they disappear as well. So yeah, I would say that's definitely the biggest mental, emotional obstacle that kind of sits in the way of women really going out there and tapping into their potential, and making the most of the gifts that they have, and allowing themselves to be vulnerable enough to just go and do it, and mess up and get it wrong, and learn and grow and have fun with it. I think that's the one of the biggest things I've noticed is how serious we take it. This thing called life, it's like, this is serious business.
No one gets out alive, right?
When we get to the great age of 90 or whatever, if we're fortunate enough to go on that long, then are we ever going to look back and say, gosh, I'm so glad that I took that business back in 2022 so seriously, and I got really upset about it. It's like, I know, how can we have fun with what we're doing? Because if you're going to do it anyway, then it's like, how can you make it fun? Whether it's putting on a fun song, or dancing before you do your work. Have you heard of Kathy Heller?
Yes. I love her podcast.
Yeah, and she does a dance party before all of her events and things, and it is just put music on and dance. And I've started doing it over the past few weeks. Before I start my work day, I put on happy, lively music and dance around the room. And it sets up the day wonderfully, because if you think back to what we spoke about earlier, what you're doing is changing your physiology.
Mm-hmm.
So you are changing the way you hold yourself. It changes the way that you feel. You can't help but create happy pictures in your mind. So when you sit down for the day, it's sit down and think, right, let's make this fun.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It takes the pressure off of everything.
Yeah. And only work with what's within your control, because that's another thing that I notice a lot with, particularly with women, is taking on the problems of the world. And that's the quickest way to become overwhelmed, you know, to worry about the economy, the government, the price of fuel and shopping at the minute, all of this stuff that's going on that we have absolutely no control over. There's nothing that we can do about it. So
yeah, how do you navigate? Because it's easy for me to say, you know, abundance this, abundance that, but then there are days if you're one of those people that takes in all of the messaging of scarcity with the news and the economy and this and that, which I try not to take that in, but sometimes it's hard not to when you're around other people. How do you navigate that and stay in a place of like love and abundance versus just all the fear that's thrown at us? And like you said, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah. So the first thing I'd recommend is to be mindful of your environment. And by your environment, it's who you spend time with, what you spend time reading, watching. So I don't really watch the news.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
don't have cable. I don't watch news. Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of keep an eye on, you know, is there anything vital happening in the world that I need to know about? Because, you know, for example, lockdown, if I hadn't have known that was happening, I would have left the house and got in trouble. So just
yeah, I had family that had to, like, I had an aunt, she's like, okay, I know you don't watch the news and you live under a cave, but shit's about to get real. Because I wouldn't have known either.
Yeah, so yeah, you can have somebody that can inform you as to what's going
like,
on.
you need to go get groceries and hunker down. I'm like, what?
Yeah, so have your informant, and then be very mindful of what you're taking in, because everything that we hear and listen to and read, it's all programming the way that we think. So be really mindful about who you spend your time with, how you spend your time, and listen to things that make you feel good. Listen to good podcasts, read good books. Then so you look after the things that are within your control, within your environment. Then a great exercise is to get out a piece of paper and draw 3 circles. In the outer circle, write down everything that's outside of your control. So all of those things that we mentioned that you can do nothing about. Then in the middle circle, you can write down things that are within your influence, which may be things like your boss, your children. You know, you don't have control over them, but you can influence certain things. And then in the middle circle, write down everything that's within your control and only focus on that. When you do that, you keep yourself at the cause side of the equation. Because if you say, I feel bad because of the economy or because of the price of shopping, then the cause is the shopping, the economy, and you're saying that caused me to feel a certain way. So then you can't do anything about that.
You're a victim again. You're a victim to all these external,
Absolutely. And the thing is, with that, nothing changes apart from the way you feel. So you feel rubbish, and that is everything. That changes your whole world, because that creates what happens next. So only work on the things that are within your control, which may be very, very few, yet they're the thing that controls everything else that happens in your life. So really focus on, right, what can I do to make myself feel good? Who can I connect with? How can I spend my time? What are the things that need to happen in order for me to start working towards my goals? So be really mindful of your time, who you spend it with, how you spend it, and what activities you do. You know, how do you look after yourself as well physically, because the mind and body are connected. So if you find that you're not eating very well or not exercising or sleeping, then that's something that's within your control. So start working on those things, and when you find when they improve, then suddenly the world looks like a whole different place.
I agree with that for sure. I like my wine, but I'll try to limit it to like only Friday or Saturday, because it gives me anxiety the next day. And then it can send me in this tail loop because I don't sleep well. And so just those small little things, I feel it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it is about keeping that balance, because, another universal law is to keep it really simple, the kind of ups and downs of life. So that if you imagine life like a pendulum swing, where things are really, really good, if they swing in one direction where life's really, really great, then the pendulum has to swing back in equal proportion in the opposite direction. So if you find yourself on this major high and then the next week it's like, oh my God, I feel absolutely terrible, what's going on, know that it's the ebbs and flows of life, it's the ups and downs, and they happen. So a great way to work through that is when you're in those really, really high periods, keep yourself grounded. So meditate, enjoy the calm in the excitement, find the calm and look for it in the excitement. And then equally, when the pendulum goes back the other way, firstly, acknowledge this is only temporary, because that's all it is. It's a pendulum swing. You know you're going to come out the other end. So whilst you're there, keep focused on what you want. And again, do what you can to feel good. Have a bath, meditate, walk, knowing that it's only temporary. So
I've got a question about the nuance of that. Like when you're working through one of those ebbs in life and you continue your best moving forward with the goal in mind. But what if like you start to kind of fizzle out because you're like, gosh, I don't see it turning around. How would you advise someone work through that? Would you say step away for a little bit or?
Yeah, I think it would be different for each individual, depending on where you are in the process, and also what works best for one may not work necessarily as well for another person. So listen to yourself to tap into, right, what do I need right now? And then see it as an opportunity. So this happens to me often. I'm human. I've got is tools that I can work with, yet life is still an experience and there's still ups and downs. During those downtime, lower periods, let's say, what I tend to do is look at it as an opportunity, right? If I can keep going through this, then I can do anything. So I almost see it as I wouldn't say the word challenge, because then it sounds challenging, but an opportunity to think, right, all I've got to do is stay focused and just turn up and just do whatever it is that's on the list today. No more, no less. Just give myself a really simple breakdown of today, this is all I've got to do. And when I do that, give myself a pat on the back, high five, and think, right, I've done it. So I've done my work. I know that even if it doesn't feel great in this moment, it's still a step closer to where I want to go. It's a bit like turning up to the gym on the day where you really can't be bothered. And it may not be the best workout. And you may even have like a chocolate bar afterwards, but you think, I did it. It's still in the right direction. And I know that next week I'm going to feel motivated again.
That really resonates.
Thinking like, right, that's it. Do you know what? I feel like crap. I'm going to eat everything in the kitchen cupboard and I'm not going to move all weekend. So I may as well just forget the whole thing and start again on Monday. It's kind of like, actually, do you know what? If I could just do a little bit, just go for a walk and maybe just have a little bit to eat, then I'm going to feel so good. So imagine yourself at the end of it thinking, right, if I can do that, how good am I going to feel? And just make it those little milestones. So it's not, right, I've got to keep going and fight through this, because then it becomes a fight.
Yes. So I guess that's where sometimes speaking of a pendulum, I used to just try to white knuckle my way through, and then I would burn myself out, and then I'd end up, with a box of donuts and a bottle of wine and just laying in bed for like a week because I had no more to give. And so then it got to where I kind of preached like total surrender. Like if it's not working, like step back. But what I have found myself in through this ebb over the past few months is, like you said, just almost sometimes doing the bare minimum, but at least you're just taking that step forward. So it's not like any crazy dramatic action. It's just that baby step forward, like continually, even when you don't want to do it. And then you still feel better because you did something. I love the gym analogy because I totally get that.
Yeah, I think it's one that probably most people can relate to, where it's, how was your work? It was okay. At least I did it.
At least you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. I did that rather than nothing. So it is that step. And that is continuing to think about, right, what is it I want? And accepting that, I think something that so many people can do is put the pressure on themselves, right? I want this thing and I want it yesterday. So it's, you see other people that maybe are where you want to be and think that they got there immediately. And it's a journey, and, everybody that's anywhere in life has had ups and downs to get there. So accepting that actually it might not be tomorrow, it might be, but it might not be. But either way, if I just keep taking those steps, then eventually it will come.
And at least that's in a sustainable way to where you're not crashing and burning. Because who wants the success if you're going to be miserable by the time you get there and you can't even maintain that sort of day-to-day grind?
Yeah.
Who wants that kind of success?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, being kind to yourself, I suppose, is that, again, think about your unconscious mind being like a 5-year-old child. Would you speak to a 5-year-old child the way that you speak to yourself half the time? People can be so mean to themselves. So be kind, forgive yourself. That doesn't mean to say, let yourself off the hook all the time. Like, have the 15 donuts. Because is that really being kind if you know what the real goal is? So
right. Because in a way that's cruel because you're deviating from what, I see that.
Yeah. But be kind to yourself. And if you do show up, and even if you only do a little, or if you fall off the wagon slightly, say, hey, I am doing well overall. And next time, this is what I'll do to get me through that period. So you've learned. Everything. There's a lesson in everything. And even if you so-called mess up, it's just feedback. And if you take on the lesson and learn from it, then it wasn't wasted.
Yeah, that true words of wisdom right there. So in addition to your life coaching programs and NLP, hypnotherapy, I also see where you are in the process of writing a book. So I want to hear all about this.
Yeah, so it's been, I think it's been 2 years in the making. I started writing it. I know there was definitely a period during lockdown that I did a lot more writing, and then I put it to one side, and it was a whole process. Writing a book has really been a journey of self-development and growth.
I'm sure. I can't imagine. I'm sure you have to put a lot of those practices into that.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was writing them, I was like, right, I apply a lot of what I learn every single day, and some things fall unconscious because, we're people. And I was applying them to my own life. And as I was going through experiences, I was writing about it. So there's a lot of real-time stuff in there, a lot of analogies. But the book itself, it's all about, it's the art and science of creating your reality from the inside out. So it goes back to the reticular activating system and understanding, right, I know that this can happen. I know that I'm the one in control of my reality, but how do I do it? Because that was the thing that bothered me. It was the how, the process of going from I want this thing to it's here in my life. And it used to bother me that I didn't understand. It was like, change your thinking, change your life. And I'm like, how do I change my thinking? I don't get it. So the book is what is going on with those images that we create. How do we change them? How do we alter the things that we see outside of us so that we can notice those opportunities, so that we understand where our motivation comes from, so that we can keep going through those periods where in the past we would have given up. So you really get to know yourself, you get to know other people, and within each chapter here's this information, and there's an exercise at the end of each chapter so you can go and apply it in your own life. Because the theory is wonderful, and without the application,
right,
what's it for? So it's coming out February the 1st next year.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it sounds far away. Yeah, we're already in October.
Yeah, so it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, it's I'm really excited about it. I've based a few of the podcast episodes on some of the chapters within the book, so that anybody who's interested can get a bit of a feel for it. But it is a self-help manual to start making positive changes. So not just reading about them, it's like, right, how do I actually put this into my life so that I can begin going from where I am now, understanding myself, and get me to where I want to be.
And so it's also like kind of rewiring your brain.
Yeah, there's practical exercises in there for you to do that as you go through the book. So the first part is kind of understanding, right, what's going on, how does this stuff work, then how do you change it. It's not the full kind of NLP works, because NLP is such a massive topic. It does embody a lot of the themes and techniques from NLP, along with timeline therapy, and also some of the quantum physics stuff as well, so that you can start.
I want to hear a little more about that. I meant to loop back into the quantum physics, but in your podcast, I don't know, I've kind of skipped around just with topics, and I'm like, ooh, this sounds really interesting. And you had like a breast cancer scare, and you applied the observer effect in quantum physics to this scare of yours. Would you elaborate a little more on that? I love how you did that.
Yeah, so it goes back to you mentioned earlier about Schrodinger's cat.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I think it was this time, no, November last year. I found a lump in one of my breasts, and there was, because of the backlog of COVID patients and things, there was a bit of a wait to get the lump tested. So I had that 3 or 4 week period of not knowing what was going on, whether it was something serious or not. So during that time, I wrote about it in the book and applied the principles of Schrodinger's cat. So for those of you listening that haven't heard of it, Schrodinger's cat, it's an experiment that just took place in Schrodinger's mind. So it didn't really happen. But the basis of it is that there was, if you imagine a box with a cat in it, and within the box, there's an explosive device that could go off within the next 60 minutes. And if it does, it's poisonous and it will kill the cat. But the cat's in a box, so we don't know when this device is going to go off. So until you open the box, you don't know if the cat's dead or alive. He's both dead and alive at the same time. Now, to apply that to the lump in my breast, because this might sound all a bit weird. When I found the lump, at that time, when I was waiting for my next appointment, I thought it's a bizarre state of limbo, because in that moment, I didn't have breast cancer, but I also didn't not have it. It was like both realities could exist. And depending on the one that I focused on, that was going to influence the day that I was living at that point. So what I could have done is thought, right, I've got a lump, that's it. It's going to be bad news. It's going to be breast cancer, and spent 4 weeks between appointments imagining that scenario, which would have been terrible. And even though it wasn't necessarily true, that would have been the life that I was living. Or the other one is, another scenario is that I don't have it and focus on, okay, well, I've got an appointment in 4 weeks, but until then, it doesn't exist because nothing's changed. I went to the doctor one day with a lump, and then the next day I was working as usual. So nothing in my reality had actually changed, yet my thinking could have done if I'd have allowed it. So I could have spent 4 weeks feeling stressed and worried, but nothing would have actually been different until you get to the doctor and they say, right, now you've got to deal with whatever this thing is. You still wake up at the same time, still have the same breakfast, still go to work, still do all of the same things. So I saw it as an opportunity to think, right, it's up to me what I choose to focus on. Am I going to be at the effect of having found this lump? And that's where I say it gets controversial, the whole cause and effect and being responsible for your life, because
right.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure
I've had some backlash, a few angry comments, maybe when I've referred to like victim mentality, and I that's kind of trauma. I don't I think trauma is in a separate category.
The way that I look at it is cause and effect, and adopting it as a mindset. It's not saying that it's true, and it's not about blame. It's about saying, if I choose to live my life this way, does it work better for me? Does it improve the results that I get? So it's not saying, right, you did this in your life, so that's your fault. It's just saying, right, okay, so I chose to be in this place at that time or do this thing, and this is the result. Or even with the lump, whatever people's beliefs are about the mind-body connection, I know that can vary, but just saying, right, this is where I am. I've chosen the life that I have to date. What can I do about it? How can I deal with it? So it is, and that's where I say, it can get controversial. And I appreciate that if people are going through difficult periods, that it may not be easy to hear. And I fall to effect often. The difference is that I kind of notice it more quickly because I've gotten used to it and think, right, okay, I schedule in a moan. I said, I'm going to give myself an hour to just moan and blame the world and blame everybody in it for everything I'm going through. And then that's it. I'm going to stop.
I love that, because, when you get started in law of attraction manifestation, it's like the superstition that you can't ever have a down day or feel your feelings. It's that what they call spiritual bypass, where it's just think happy thoughts.
Yeah.
In a good vibe.
Yeah. And it doesn't work because it's like putting a happy sticker on a sad face. The sad face is still there. It's just covered up. And that really is the difference between the conscious and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is everything that we're aware of. It's what we see, hear, feel outside of us that we experience in the moment. The unconscious mind is that everything else that's going on, and pretending that it doesn't exist doesn't change it. So this is where things like affirmations, telling yourself, right, I can do this, I can do this. And if the voice in your head is saying, no, you can't, pretending that voice isn't there doesn't stop it from talking. So it's like, right, what do I need to do to help that voice inside of me? Or, I do feel bad. So what is it that I need to deal with? Because pretending it isn't there, it'll just show up at a later date. So it's, it is, the first time that you're hearing it, it can be a bit like, what? It can be a very different way of thinking to what we're programmed to think like in society. And it is just a model. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just, hey, is this working for me? Doing it this way. If it's not, let me just try this way. Let me pretend. That's where I started and still am, really. I just pretend that I'm responsible for everything in my life.
I like that better. I don't like to feel like it's all out of my control. To me, it just feels better to take on that perspective that I am in control.
Yeah.
We don't ultimately know if it's true or not, but it just feels better. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, even if it doesn't work and, the things that you want to change in your life, it doesn't happen. At least if you're pretending that you can, then you're going to feel good whilst you're working at it. It's again, going back to having a bit of fun with it. And right, if I was responsible for this, what would I do? How would I behave differently? How would I respond if I knew that this was totally all down to me? And see how you feel differently about it. That's the thing, is to experiment, because there is no right or wrong way. There's no good or bad. It's just, it either works or it doesn't. So play with stuff. Get curious about what's out there. The quantum stuff is like a rabbit hole that you can really go down. But it's just fun to think everything that could exist does exist right now. So every lifetime, every possibility, if you can think it, the minute you think something, it's created in the quantum field. The things that show up in our life are the ones that we choose to observe. So there are all the possibilities. The most probable experience that we will have is the one that we observe, which is the one that we focus on. which is where focus comes in, and telling yourself the way you want it, because then you're telling your brain to look at the thing that you want, and the more you focus on something, the more likely it is to manifest in physical form.
Yeah, like all the angel numbers that I see now. I love it. It makes me so happy.
Yeah,
it does feel like a physical manifestation that I have over the course of 6 years raised my vibration. Just all the synchronicities. It's like a wink from God or the universe, or I don't know. Sometimes I even think like the whole simulation theory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like a glitch in the matrix. When I see all the numbers, I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm getting past the, the matrix part.
Yeah. I love that. And again, then it turns it into a bit of a game, doesn't it?
Yes, a game.
I'm in this game called life, and I'm going to go play.
I love that. Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask you one more question, Sian. What advice would you give to someone that was just now kind of tapping into the fact that the way they're living is not working for them anymore? They've identified that it's not working. Now, where would you have them go from there once they've kind of made peace with the fact that the status quo, the hustle, the mindless 9-to-5 grind, just it's sucking their soul?
Yeah. Been there, done that. And I think a great place to start is to realize that change is a process. So making the decision, I don't want this anymore, it doesn't mean that by tomorrow everything has to have changed. So depending on, it'll be different for everybody, because there could be people that they can say, do you know what, this doesn't work for me, I quit. And they can sustain themselves, they can feed themselves and pay their bills and keep a roof over their head, and that's okay. Yet not everybody necessarily has that same circumstance. So if somebody's in that position where it's not working for them yet, and they have responsibilities, to accept that there may be a transition and be okay with that, because that's all it is. It's going from one thing to another. So firstly, deciding, right, what is it I want? I know I don't want this. So what is almost like the opposite to that? There can be a lot of pressure to think, right, I need to know my life purpose. I need to know why I'm here. And that's great. Yet your life purpose can be fulfilled in many, many ways. So just seeing whatever it is that you decide you want, it doesn't have to be that forever. That could just be the first thing that takes you from the 9-to-5 hustle to the next step of, oh, now I've started to make some money by myself. And maybe that'll change. And just, again, seeing it as a journey, a process. So make a decision, right? What is it that I want to do? What would I enjoy doing? And then take small steps. So just find out one step at a time. So, right, if I was to do that, what would I need to know? What would need to happen? Say it was starting a podcast. So, right, if I wanted to start a podcast, how'd you do that? And just go and search for that. And then maybe allocate. So say if you find yourself saying, I don't have time, I can't fit that in. It's like, right, cause or effect. Is it that I won't do it? Is it not that it's not important to me? And if it's not important, that's okay. Be honest and say, right, what would I like to spend my time doing? What would I be okay with maybe giving up somewhere else to invest some time in this? Because, setting up a business, it does take time. You've got to kind of the get rich quick thing. Yes, it can happen. Yet the reality for most people is that you've actually got to go and create something.
And not be paid for it. I mean,
yeah.
And actually the podcast costs me money, but it's okay because it feels aligned. I think people don't make that connection, that you don't just walk into something and start making money from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of be in it for the long haul and appreciate that there will be a transition period. So there may be times where you've got to work the extra hours. And if you don't want to do that, if it's not important enough to do it right now, then that's okay. Maybe you're in a position where you'd rather look at a different job for now. So, people don't have to quit their jobs and start their own business to enjoy what they do. So get kind of brutally honest with yourself about what it is you want. Where are you in life? What's important to you right now? I've worked with coaching clients where, they've come saying, I want to set up my own business and have my 6 figures and all the good stuff. And then when we've actually dug into it, they've said, you know what, right now, actually, my kids are young and I don't want to do that. I just feel like I should because my friends have done it, and back to that should.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of be brutally honest with yourself. What do you want? And then start taking those baby steps. Just explore to begin with, have that childlike curiosity of what would I like to do? Because when we're kids, we dream big. We let ourselves think about all the things that we have fun doing. It's not about what will pay the bills or what business we think would be the most profitable. It's what do I like?
Mm-hmm.
And then work out, okay, so what's the next step? How do I do that? And a great way, kind of going off on one, is there can be a kind of the grass is always greener. So, I hate my job, I hate what I'm doing, so I want to set up on my own. But the problem is we take ourselves with us.
Yes.
So it's like those problems that you're experiencing where you were previously, or even if you jump to a new job, it's like, the faces are different, but the problems are the same. And it's because we haven't changed. So I would always recommend, right, what's not working where you are, and wherever possible, fix that. So if you're finding that, your relationships at work aren't what you want them to be, look at how you can improve those. If the hours aren't working for you, see how you, talk with your boss and see how you can make it better. If you're not fulfilled, look at, right, how can I get fulfilled in my job? Let me again speak to my boss and see what I can do to bring that into my role whilst pursuing something else, if that's still what you want to do. Because if you make it work where you are, you'll find that it works wherever you go. Because again, you take yourself with you. So look at making the grass green where you are, and then put a whole new lawn down if that's what you want to do.
I love that. And so at the end of the day, self-development is really the biggest investment, I would say, for people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, my whole book is about that whole thing, in that the world outside of us is a reflection of what's going on inside for us. So if we can change the inside, then the reflection will change as well. Rather than trying to fix the world and everybody in it, if we see anything as being broken or needing fixing or wrong, it's really to do with, right, what is that about me that I need to work on so that I see it differently?
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, because that, again, that's within our control.
Yes, you feel more powerful. Yeah, I love that. That's so helpful. Thank you so much, Sian. Can you tell everyone where to find you?
Yeah, of course. So Instagram's probably the easiest place. So it's at I am Sian Hill.
And I'll put this in the show notes too.
Yeah. And then there's my podcast, which is Vibrant Mind, Vibrant Life. I said go into lots of practical tips and tricks for people to start thinking differently straight away.
I've binge listened to it. So I think my readers, my listeners will love it, because I've been going through them all.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of gone through so many things today. So apologies if I've been bombarding you with stuff.
No,
I'm so passionate about
it. Yeah, no, this is totally down my alley. So thank you so much for being my second guest. And we had a few technical difficulties, but we worked through that. And I think people really find this helpful. So thank you so much, Sian.
No, thank you for having me. It's been really, really good.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for stopping by this week. I make no money from this podcast, so the best way you can pay it forward is by leaving the show a 5-star review, sharing it with a friend, or even screenshotting this episode on your phone, uploading it to your Insta story, and tagging me in it at Designing Vibes. Sending you my love.